Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out People of Reddit. Story 1. The Case of the Missing Vowels. This happened a long time ago in a project far far away. I was put on a IT development project where the company I worked for was subcontracted by the lead contractor. We had a wonderful project manager, but because the lead contractor had executives who didn't know how to work with the end government client, things went off the rails. Of course they blamed our much beloved and very competent PM, so he was replaced, of course, by the least competent alternative they could find this side of Tatooine. This guy did not know anything about IT. It was a development project. The company I worked for adhered to the philosophy that any good project manager can manage any type of project. Perhaps that is true, but he was not a good PM. He yelled at people, flew off the handle, and made bad assumptions based on his poor grasp of technology. He was always giving our poor IT support trouble because he couldn't use basic office tech very well, even email. I suspect he was very aware of being out of his depth, and took it out on everyone. Every day. I was about to start typing a short email report to send him one Friday afternoon, but I decided the better of it. He would usually run to my desk and demand explanations for things that were to my mind simple, rarely were any interactions pleasant. It had been a long week. But I mistakenly clicked send. And sent a blank message. Well, true to form, he ran to my desk asking why I had sent a blank message. In that moment I had an inspiration. I said I hadn't sent him a message. I had the presence of mind to delete the message from my sent folder when I heard him bustling towards me, so showed him my sent folder. I suggested it was his email. He bustled off to log another ticket with IT. Thus commenced my campaign. Every Friday afternoon I sent a blank message at exactly the same time. Everyone on the team was soon aware of it and had to stifle themselves when he would go on about his email problems at project meetings. I think a few other people would send blank messages once in a while to keep him from thinking this was solely me, and just to wind him up even more. The project was finally winding down after many months of mismanagement by the lead contractor and this PM. I had to type up another short email report. I let the rest of the team know the endgame plan. When I had finished writing it up, I carefully made 3 copies. From one I subtracted all the vowels. From another I removed all the consonants. I sent the vowel-less one at the appointed time, followed quickly by the one sans consonants. I then deleted them from my sent folder and moved the properly formatted one into my sent. Just in time because he made beeline for my desk. The email you sent is gibberish. What do you mean? It makes no sense. I showed him what was in my sent. We went to his desk and he showed me the email with no vowels. He hadn't seen the second one with no consonants, so I watched him open it. Would you look at that? The vowels came after the consonants. Maybe something is wrong with your email, or you have a virus separating them. On cue, he opens a panicked ticket. I went back to my desk. A little while later the woman who ran our team's IT support walked up to my desk and punched me in the shoulder. Ow! What was that for? That was very funny. Don't do it again. Apparently the story of the virus that disemboweled the project manager still circulates at the company many years after I left. Story 2. Screensaver. My ex-husband was having several relationships on the internet. I was at the point where I had enough and was ready to confront. After he put the kids to bed he came down a few and turned on the computer. He was shocked to see the screensaver was a picture of one of the women he had made plans to meet. I said, "Oh, you should update your girlfriend that not only can you meet up, you can go there and stay." The look on his face was priceless. After our 20-year marriage he moved in with another woman 2 weeks later, then married her. He did the exact thing to her and married his third wife. Pretty sure she will not be his last wife. I still laugh to myself the look on his face when he turned on the computer. Story 3. Police officer tries to force a bribe out of my dad but his bluff is called. So this story takes place in a developing country in Southeast Asia. A lot of countries around there have corruption in every industry and police are no exception. Some policemen can essentially be gangsters with a badge and gun. They also make a shit salary, so that doesn't make things better. It's a common occurrence that corrupt traffic police will go fishing for people who commit the smallest of offenses and essentially force a bribe from them or make their lives hell as a consequence. This is actually more of the tame side of the corrupt police. God help you if you're a teenager with a car, because then it will feel more like a shakedown. And if you're a teenage girl without your parents present, then well, the stories I have heard have just been awful. Yup. Exactly what you are thinking has happened to those poor girls, and much worse. My father is an expat from the UK and so is a foreigner. I am of mixed race. This is important because one day he gets stopped by a traffic officer. He tells my dad that he broke a red light, false, and that he could have him sent to the station to be processed and sort out the fine, or, in his words, we can take care of the problem right here right now. My dad has had enough of these shakedowns, and one day it just clicks that if he's a foreigner from the UK, then the police would have an absolute nightmare of paperwork to process him. Since they're crooked, lazy cops anyway, he figured that paperwork for an expat is the last thing they want to do. My dad looks at them and says, "No, you are right and I was wrong. I'll pay the ticket and accept the repercussions." They look baffled and try to tell him that the process will be very long for him and a huge hassle. My dad stands his ground and says he has time and will happily go with them to the station. Eventually they give up and tell him to just drive safe. Now my dad uses that tactic every time he has to deal with a dirty cop. On a side note, if you are a foreign woman traveling in Southeast Asia, be sure to remember that police in the wild are just as dangerous as anyone else. Don't trust them and just trust the people you travel with. Story 4. Victim Face. Victim Face sat opposite me in my old work. She was everything I find really difficult in other people. You know the type. Passive-aggressive, sighing over not getting to leave early when others did, but refusing to accept that they came in early too. Sharing her problems constantly, as it was so lovely to have emotionally supportive callers. She went through whatever terrible fate life had thrown at her that day. I wouldn't have minded so much if Victim Face hadn't been one of the laziest arses around. She'd do nothing for days and whine about how she was so busy and management didn't understand how stressed she was. Doing fuck all can be exhausting, I understand. The one thing Victim Face hated was answering the phone. If anyone phoned, she would wait and wait and wait, just looking at it until someone else got fed up with listening to it and picked it up and answered. She would never take a call ever. But oh my god, did she whine about the phone. She didn't understand why her phone rang all the time and nobody else's did. They did, constantly, it's just other people answered them and didn't leave them to ring until they broke someone else's spirit and they answered. I was working late after she'd left one day early to pick up her kids. Nobody knows how hard it is to be a millennial mother. I sent a global email out, missing out her and management, stating that due to technical problems there was an issue with the phones and could everyone please change the number in their email signature to hers. I then changed the options on the phones so you couldn't pick up calls from other desks. The next day I watched Victim Face getting angrier and angrier as her phone rang constantly and nobody else could pick it up. She got more and more stressed as the day, then the week went on. I sat there with an enormous internal grin, watching and being the kindest, most sympathetic colleague you could ever have. I left it like that for about a week before reconnecting the pickup loop and telling people to change the numbers in their email signatures back to their own. Personally, I never did, and she answered my calls for the rest of the time we worked together. Story 5. Called out guy who denied flirting just for fun. The other day I was having a really rough time. My fiancé and I are stuck in a shelter RN for our safety. 2 weeks in an outdoor shelter with no privacy except to pee or shower around hundreds of people will break you down. I was at a point that all the noise was making me bawl my eyes out, and we were just picking up a phone from the charging room before leaving to get some air and therapy sessions. Fiancé is inside and a guy comes up to me trying to flirt. I mention I'm with fiancé and his response is, "I'm from LA where we don't care about that." I reject 3 attempts to get my info and without really thinking I type his number into a random note so he sees me do it and hopefully goes away. Finally his attention goes elsewhere and he leaves me alone. I know he couldn't realize how upset I was, but we've all seen it when a person is pale, near tears, their voice is shaky. I just looked like I was about to break and it was obvious I'd been crying all day. The next day we're in the same line, fiancé goes in, they let a certain amount of people in at a time, and I'm sitting outside. Guy from before takes a step close to me and under my breath I say don't do it. But he seems to hear that cause he stops in his tracks and goes around me to the back of the line. I call fiancé and ask him to hurry back just in case. I made it clear he wasn't currently bothering me, but just wanted to feel okay. When he gets out he respectfully asked the guy if it was me he hit on. Guy denied it and got hostile and fiancé apologized, explained his only intention is to ask whoever it was to not do it again BC we're really struggling right now. But I'm the petty one and I'm annoyed that he denied it when he'd been staring at me in line for 10 plus min. Pulled up notes, saw I still had his number and put it in text now. Called it and his phone rang to which I said it was me calling the guy who gave me his number yesterday. We didn't push it further, I just wanted to prove my point to my fiancé and the nosy busybodies watching cause they love drama. Haven't seen him around since then luckily. Also text now is a fake number app so he didn't get my real info. Story 6. A fee for assembly okay. This happened back when I was little, but still gets brought up occasionally. When I was very little my parents decided to buy me my first bike. We went down to the local Canadian Tire and picked out the last bike they had in stock, which was the display model. The idea was to buy it now and use it the next summer when I was bigger. We get this thing up to the counter and the cashier informs us that they'll have to charge a fee for assembly. Now this thing had been sitting up on display since roughly Easter, it was late fall when we went to get it, it had a thick layer of dust on it, and my dad didn't want to pay for a service he didn't ask for. My father overcame our family's staircase wit, looked this man dead in the eyes and politely said, "Okay, then, take it apart." The cashier apparently had no idea how to respond and called the manager over who looked at the bike and told him to just waive the assembly fee. To this day my dad will say his one regret to this story was that he didn't also ask for the box. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.